I'm Laura Bonnell, and this is the Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast coming to you from Detroit. Please subscribe and even rate and comment on our podcasts when it moves you. I learn something new with every podcast, and I'm always inspired by the people that are showcased here. We don't give medical advice. You need to connect with your doctor for that. I hope that this Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast educates you and sparks some volunteering or advocacy. The CF community needs people like you. Thanks to our sponsor, Viatris, for their support. Lejla Bush is a social worker who has been with the Adult CF Center for the past 7 years, and she started her path in CF as an intern, and then she went on to earn her MSW. She's worked in the emergency department and then found her way back to cystic fibrosis care. And in her role, she has supported patients and family through adherence challenges, relationship concerns, and mental health, and the journey of transplant before and after. And this is such an interesting conversation, as you're going to see. You're going to learn a lot about the Amish and Mennonite community in regard to care in cystic fibrosis. So let's just get right into it with Lejla Bush. Lejla, thank you so much for joining us. It is great to have you, and everyone's going to learn so much in our discussion prior to doing this podcast. I've already learned so much about CF and the Amish community, so thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me and letting me talk on the community.
Absolutely. And first, we wanted, even though I mentioned a few things in the introduction, talk about you for just a minute and why you enjoy working in the CF community, doing what you're doing.
My relationship with the CF community started about 10 years ago. As part of my graduate program, we had an internship, and I actually was an intern in the cystic fibrosis clinic. I connected with a lot of the patients that were there. Specifically, there was one Amish little boy who was really sick. And so we connected a lot. And then when the internship ended, I pursued a position at Upstate in the CF clinic. So a couple of years after that, I was able to get hired. And then I end up working now with adults who have cystic fibrosis. So I'm their mental health coordinator and the social worker there.
And then can you give us a sense of how big or small your CF clinic is, both in adults and in kids?
Absolutely. So in adults, we have about, I would say, 140 patients or so, and peds is about 120 to 130. So a little smaller because of Trikafta. Our patients are living longer. So slowly the adult population is getting to be larger.
And do you feel that you've come into this disease at such a different time when there's so many more options for medications?
Yes. So when I started 10 years ago, we didn't have Trikafta. So I was able to see patients who were sick and who were suffering, slowly following them to the point where they're at now while they're on Trikafta and able to take all the medications that they're taking, and just seeing how much they've improved and kind of like how their health has changed.
I wanted to talk about the Amish and the Mennonite community and all that goes on with them. What are some of the unique differences that you see as you care for the Amish community, and how many Amish and Mennonite patients do you have?
So we have about 4 adults with cystic fibrosis who are Amish, and then we have 5 pediatric patients. And then we have 3 adults who are Mennonite. And overall, we just try to meet them where they're at with their treatment process. They don't have electricity, so they don't use clocks. So they might come in late or early for appointments. And we just, we see them when they come in. We try to coordinate all the appointments that are nearby, like if they have a DEXA scan or anything like that, to try to get it in one day so they're not traveling back and forth a lot. Reducing their costs, but also making it easier for them to have a fuller day of work on the farm or whatever they're doing in their community.
And your CF clinic really has done a lot of adapting. I think that's amazing. Tell me what sort of adaptations. You were just talking about the visits. They go by the sun, so they might not be on time. But transportation, we know, people have seen them. They're in a horse and buggy. They have to get a driver, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, usually our Amish patients will get drivers out. We give them the appointment at the end of the visit. And then if we have to, we'll send them a reminder letter just so they have time to coordinate transportation to and from the appointments. And we also try to meet them where they're at as far as their medication regimen. Sometimes the Amish patients will prefer to try out some herbal remedies before they're willing to maybe start on a medication. So we will let them do that and then kind of see how things work for them with that. If things aren't going as well, we will have that conversation about what else we can add to their medication list, just kind of letting them guide us.
You were educating me about the Amish and Mennonite communities, and they like to only have to rely on one another and not the outside community. So there are many things that we're going to talk about. One of the things is they don't have health insurance. And so because of that, how do they pay for things? I know the Bonnell Foundation is helping some Mennonite and Amish patients for this very reason. But how do you work with them in regard to health insurance?
So, like you said, they don't have insurance. So we help them apply for a financial aid application through the hospital that would reduce the cost of their visits and their treatments. And then once they have that reduced, we help them connect with the billing office in order to set up a payment plan or to reach a settlement to take care of their bills.
And how does that go? I mean, if you can explain a little more about all the hoops and everything that happens with insurance.
So usually what will happen is the pediatric social worker and we keep track of when financial aid applications are due and when they're going to be running out. So if someone's coming in and their application is running out soon, we will just bring it in. So we'll go in the room with the patient, we'll help them complete it. And then they will mail us either bank statements or some type of proof of how much they earn. And once we have all that, we submit it to financial aid at the hospital for review.
And there are many different communities that have challenges with health insurance or situations. Obviously, it's not just the Amish and the Mennonites, but this is interesting because it is a group or a community that I don't think many people were aware of. When I was at a conference, the Ohio Valley Conference, there was a doctor speaking from Ohio who has a big population of Amish patients that he treats. So it really is very interesting. And I know we're waiting on getting some information directly from them. I sent them questions and they're going to answer them and we'll provide those. But when we get them, but in the meantime, you're filling us in. But it is so interesting. It must be so interesting for you to get to know these patients and work with them.
It's amazing. Just getting to learn about their culture and learning how connected they are as a community and how much they rely on each other and how much they're able to support each other. I will have a patient coming in last minute and she might bring up that her brother is, helping out on the farm so her husband could come with her. So they're so well enmeshed and connected that they just help each other out with anything that's going on.
And there are some things they won't do, and we will get into that. But x-rays they'll do, they will be hospitalized when necessary. They don't refuse care or anything. They just sometimes have certain wishes on how to get their care. Is that right?
Yes. We try, if for any reason their financial aid is taking longer to get reviewed, or if they don't have to have a certain lab work or maybe a procedure, we try not to push it unless they really want to. Because they don't have insurance, we kind of try to focus on what they really have to get done to reduce their costs. And we work with them on that.
And I want to talk about what you see as the biggest challenges, but I also wanted to ask you about communication because they don't have phones. You can't call them. I believe you also said they don't email you back and forth. So if you have a question, how do you get answers from them?
So usually I will mail them a letter. Sometimes I will send it as certified mail to make sure that they receive it and have to sign for it if it's something more urgent, just to make sure that it goes into their hands versus something that they, get from the mailbox and put on their dining room table. Like it's busy and maybe they forget to respond. So that's what we do more for urgent stuff. Some of our Amish patients do have an emergency contact in the community who we call if things are emergent or, if maybe we need to see them before a letter can get to them or results are in that we need to let them know about right away, things like that. We can, if they have shared someone, call them in those situations. And when that happens, we leave a message to have them call us. So whenever this other person sees our patient, they say, hey, this person was trying to get in touch with you. Here's our number, call them back. And they use their phone, the phone of the neighbor, to call back.
I mean, you must have emergent situations sometimes when test results come back or a PFT is low and you're like, you know what? The PFT was low, the test results are bad, you need to be admitted, get a tune-up or whatever. I mean, that must happen, right? And you need to track them down quickly?
Yeah, and we might call them and just their neighbor would find them and we would just say, like, either go to the ED or we need this to happen. A lot of times our Amish patients will also give our clinic a call. We make sure they have the number so that maybe we can't call them, but we will just stress that if they're not feeling well, or let's say they're admitted locally or something is going on, that they give us a call and let us know and just leave a message if no one responds right away with a good number to reach them.
I don't know if what you're talking about now is the biggest challenge, but what are the biggest challenges and how have you grown and learned from your experiences with the Amish and Mennonite communities?
Like we talked about, communication is a big barrier. I'm just trying to understand that it takes time for these things to get to them and then to get back to us. Sometimes completing applications for medication assistance to get their medications covered can be difficult. So we have to do them in clinic versus getting them mailed out to ensure that they get completed promptly and that they don't have a lapse in medications.
And when patients are hospitalized, what is that routine like? Is it different than anyone else? Is it the same? Is there anything else the care team has to do differently?
So we try to stay in communication with them as much as we can. Normally, when a patient's admitted, I will round on them at least once a week just to check in. A lot of times our Amish patients will have a loved one that's there with them during the visit. Sometimes if they have more family that comes up, we try to get them housing near the hospital so they can come and go and respect visitation hours for the hospital. They will still do whatever's required of them in the hospital. It's just educating also the inpatient team on the Amish culture and, giving them a heads up of things that they may or may not be comfortable doing.
It's just beautiful that all these clinics that are working with the Amish and Mennonite community can adapt and make it work, because you do have to change things. I mean, even the fact that they're going to come to an appointment maybe a couple hours late because they're going off the sun and not a clock. That is pretty cool, if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely. And just understanding that sometimes when our weather's bad, they're not going to be able to come, or understanding and learning from them when the busiest time of the year on the farm might be for them. So we avoid scheduling appointments during those times. We have one Amish patient who has to take a bus to the appointment. So just coordinating with her of what times like the bus is coming and leaving to make sure that our appointments fit into that gap so she can still get home on time. Things like that, just taking everything into consideration.
And what have they taught you? Have they said, "Hey, if you do this, this will help us with better care," or maybe we should do such and such? Do they give you feedback so you know how to adapt?
They definitely have, especially as far as like scheduling appointments, understanding that maybe early appointments are not good for them because they might have to wake up and still do farm work and then actually get here. So, doing not too late in the day, but maybe midday appointments are helpful, things like that. And also just getting understanding from them on their connection with their church and their community and the ways that they connect with each other, and who we can reach out to when they need support.
And all of us have our challenges. We're all alike in this disease, wanting to get our kids on CF modulators. What do you hear from parents in regard to their fear and their hopes for their kids in the future?
What I've heard is that all the parents, they want the best for their kid. They want their kid to be the healthiest, and they want to find the most natural way for that to happen in the Amish community. So if that means trying out different types of maybe herbal remedies to ensure that they're safe and that they're healthy, then they do that. A lot of them are also open to Trikafta. But as far as the transplant process goes, that is not something that they have been accepting. A lot of the time, it's because of lack of insurance. It would cost a lot to get that. But another part of that is the belief that their health is and their destiny is controlled by a higher above being. And so they don't want to change that. So if they're meant to live to a certain point, that's how long they're meant to be living. And they're comfortable with that understanding.
And they have so much community support. And I mean, as parents go, I know if I sat down with them, we would have the same like mom conversations. We all had the same worries and the same hopes for our kids. And, if the dads got together and if, and they did you tell me that they do talk to other CF kids via maybe a little bit of pen pal kind of thing?
They can. They can write to each other. And a lot of the patients that we have in clinic are somehow connected. So we have two sets of siblings, and then we have like cousins, things like that. So they are connected by blood as well. So they might see each other in the community and might still interact with each other in one way or another. I think they try to respect and stay away from each other, especially if one is more sick than another. But they do find a way to still connect and get that support from each other.
And really, the letter writing thing is such a beautiful thing. And it is this constant diary of your whole life that you then have. I mean, that seems pretty beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's nice getting letters from them, and just part of their letters is, asking us questions and asking for support. But their letters start off with what they're doing and what their farm life is like. And it's just nice to get a glimpse into that and be reminded that they have all these other things that are going on aside from their CF.
And what about challenges? Because I know one of the first things that the girls' doctor said when they were little was, if you don't have air conditioning, get air conditioning, because otherwise they're going to sweat and they're going to lose a lot of salt. So if you could do that, that would be good for the summer months. They don't have electricity. I don't think they really think air conditioning is that great. So how does that differ?
They don't have electricity, so they don't use air conditioning. They don't usually use like lights. They don't have like a stove, clocks, things like that. All the things that we might be used to in everyday life or maybe take for granted, they don't use. They have to find a way around that, lives that are a little simpler and just more natural. So they just, they go to bed at sundown, they wake up at sun up, and they just follow that routine.
You were telling me about how they do adjust to cystic fibrosis. So tell us about some of the people share about, like, one woman works on a farm, and I think she does have electricity for her oxygen, right?
Yep, her husband works on the farm, and so they live as part of the farm where he's employed. So they're able to have that electricity and that oxygen. At one point, she was hospice years ago, and we actually helped her apply for Medicaid because all those costs were very high. And she ended up being shunned and maybe almost kicked out of her community because she was on Medicaid. And so then we had to help her get off Medicaid, and that was actually harder to do because she had proved that she was financially in need, and now we're trying to take it away. So we were successful in convincing the county that because of their cultural beliefs and just their needs, that she wouldn't be okay being on Medicaid. So they took that away. And so she is doing better now medically, but at the same time, she's also, she's paying for her own bills. So that's something that she had to wait for herself. So it's just interesting seeing how there's some things that they take in from our culture, and there's others that they're a little more firm on.
And I know that some people might be judging them. I don't know. I'm sure there are, but I mean, we can all make our own choices, right? And they're making it work. And this is about her. She's not making this sort of decision for someone else. This is specifically about her care. And she's done it successfully now with your help and the county's help, right?
She has, and there's some beauty in realizing how connected they are as a community. I had one woman who told me that they rely on people who are connected with the church for like child rearing or gardening or things like that. So she has 2 little ones, and she's pregnant with their third. And she knows that at some point, she might get sick with celiac during the pregnancy where she can't do some things that she can normally do. She would reach out to the church to help with those kind of things.
And you also told me, if I'm correct, that they won't do the infertility plan for the male population in the Amish and Mennonite community. So do they adopt if they want children, or what do they do?
So interestingly, we have one male in our clinic who has cystic fibrosis, and he is looking into adopting. He and his wife are connected with 2 other couples who live out of state, and they've been communicating with them through letter just to kind of get a sense of what that process would be like. So I think some challenges to that would be like the paperwork and phone calls and everything that would be included in the adoption process that maybe they don't have access to because of technology. So their plan is to connect with their local DSS department and just talk to them about, meeting with someone in person in the office to review those applications, or just getting someone that can work with them through that process.
And Lejla, that's a lot of work for you. That's a lot of work for any social worker that's working in this Amish Mennonite community, correct? When you apply on their behalf at the Bonnell Foundation. So how do you and others balance that amount of work in your daily routine with so many other patients?
Honestly, I think of it as like a half-half. They have to take ownership as far as like agreeing to help, and we do a lot of the applications during the clinic visit. So maybe I will have them write as we do the application, or if we do it online, I'll have them next to me answering questions as I'm typing them. Even if I know the answer, that way they might feel more part of the process and they don't feel like I'm doing it on their behalf. We're kind of doing it together. They just don't have that computer or that piece of technology where they could click a button and submit. That's kind of how I do it. And I try to prepare ahead so that when they are coming in, we're trying to look at the next 6 months, what's due and what needs to be done. So if maybe I know that something's due in January, I might help them start the process if they come in September, because who knows, come January, we might have a snowstorm and things like that. And their application is due to get Creon or Trikafta, and they can't come in to complete it. And I've mailed it, but it gets lost or it's hard to, get it back to me. They might have a lapse in medication. So just getting that signed and everything done ahead of time, just kind of setting it aside and then submitting it when it has to go in, just kind of preparing ahead.
And what do you think we can learn from them? I'm sure there are things that you've seen where you're like, oh, wow, I want to tell more people about this, on how this really works within that community and could impact others and help them.
I think I mentioned it earlier, but also just connecting with each other and seeing how close they are, that you can call your church and say, hey, I need someone to come clean the garden, or I need somebody to come watch my kids. I think if we did that, people in everyday life are so busy with what they have going on that it would be hard to get that support, maybe where they are able to live more of a simpler and calmer life, removed from all the technology and everything that maybe is involved with that, where in one sense technology might be a barrier, like lack of it, because they can't do some things. In another sense, it's nice because they will talk to each other when they need something. They don't send a text message. They don't make a phone call. If something happens, they will bake a loaf of bread and go visit a neighbor. So just more in-person, genuine things like that maybe we tend to forget. It's easy to pick up a phone and call a loved one and check in on them. They might actually go to the person and bake them goods and visit them in person. So just having that human connection, I think, is a big part of it.
That is a beautiful thing, honestly, that we can all, myself included, do more of, because it is so much more personal. Or even handwriting a card. That I do love doing, getting all kinds of different stationery. Tell us a little bit more about maybe some of the kids and how they're handling cystic fibrosis.
So a lot of the kids, when they come to clinic, they are part of the visit, but the ones we have right now are smaller. So they might be like 5 or under. So they are with their parents and kind of absorbing what we're saying. I'm not really sure how much they're kind of taking in. I know that when I worked as an intern, the patient who was Amish, I want to say he was an adolescent, and he actually ended up passing away. He needed a transplant, and it wasn't something that was accepted and that they felt like was a requirement. So their decision was to let him enjoy the rest of his days being a child and running and doing whatever it was he did before he passed. But I found it interesting that when the doctor had conversations about his health, sometimes he was asked to step out, just to kind of not overwhelm him with what was going on. So at that point, it was hard because it was important that he knew what was happening too. I'm sure he felt things in his body as it was slowing down that maybe he had questions about, that he didn't know about, because it wasn't something that was discussed in front of him. But at the same time, he was so young. If what we said, I don't know if it would have even stuck. But that was the one instance where I realized how maybe separated it is, where, you talk to the parents and you educate them. And if it's too heavy of a topic, the child might be asked to step out.
Wow, that's hard. That's heartbreaking. I mean, that's so sad. And thanks for sharing that with us, because it helps everyone learn and understand. What about like a dad's role? We always talk about dads getting more involved, and I think they are more involved now in the CF care maybe than they were years ago. But what do you see within the Amish and Mennonite community?
So what I've learned from them is that normally the dads and the men, that they work on the farm to provide financially for the family, while the women, the moms, would be home either making goods so they can sell them and just raising children and just being homemakers. During clinic appointments, I've noticed that they kind of share the role together, where both mom and dad will speak and answer questions, but that's what I've learned as far as home life goes.
And when one of my daughters was at the hospital, it was a beautiful thing when the girl in the bed next to her was Amish, and the whole family, like the extended family. There were a lot of people that came to visit, and because of their ability to be flexible for some of the things that you mentioned, it was lovely that so many were able to show support to that patient.
Absolutely. We see that here where they come in, and there's several people in the room and they're kind of switching and taking turns. And if a husband has to go home and work on the farm, maybe mom will come in and stay and just be that support system for the Amish when, they might be used to appointments, but if they get admitted maybe once a year, once every other year, it's not something they're used to, medical staff coming in and poking them for blood work and doing PFTs, things like that. I also think it's a learning experience for the families who come visit. If they're extended, they might not live close enough to them to actually see them do their PFTs or them get their blood work, things like that. So I think that also causes more of a connection when they visit. It gives them the chance to learn more about this person's journey with cystic fibrosis.
And, I'm sure some people have opinions or strong feelings, maybe even about the lung transplant situation, but they're not doing anything illegal. They're allowed to be in charge of their care, correct?
Absolutely. They're following the path that they've chosen, and we just help them along that path and figure out what we can do to support them.
I love that you keep sharing. So I do want to ask you again, because I know you get such long letters, and I think there's one woman who writes you some really long letters. Tell us about her. And we're not saying names just to protect their privacy, but tell us about her.
Yeah, usually we see her about once or twice a year. She's more of our healthier Amish patient, and she'll send letters if she needs something. Sometimes they're like 4 or 5 pages just talking about, she'll usually start with a greeting and then kind of talk about the weather and what she's been up to as far as like selling goods and what her home life is like, if she's going to a wedding, things like that. And then she'll continue to ask us specific questions and just end with a positive note. So it's just nice getting those letters because it just gives you that glimpse into, what they have going on and what her days are like and what family she's visited and just what her life is like outside of clinic. With my other patients, I could just give them a call and, they would tell me about what they're struggling with and what's going on. With her, I see her once or twice a year. So receiving those letters gets us to understand her and her life a little better.
And what if there are some kids under 18 or maybe adults that want to connect and kind of do a pen pal thing? Is that something that we could facilitate, or, I don't know if it's even possible, or, it would just seem like it would be really beneficial to everyone to be able to communicate and talk about, the difference, the challenges they face?
Absolutely. So if that was something that came up, I might connect them with CF Peer Connect. I might call Compass during a clinic visit and just get that process rolling and help them complete whatever paperwork needs to be completed. Maybe even, speak with a caseworker and explain their situation and help facilitate that process, be more of a middleman to make sure that our patients get connected with someone that will understand them. I always say that it's nice because you can tell your husband or your kids or your parents about what you're going through, but unless you have someone who physically has gone through some of the things you have, it's really hard to understand what you're going through.
And the Bonnell Foundation has a peer-to-peer group, and it is non-medical advice, and it's been wonderful because parents love to say, yeah, I've been through this, or this is, what I did with daycare, or this is this school I chose because, it's conducive to carrying enzymes in the classroom, whatever it may be. So I know it is a beautiful thing when you connect. And then when we did our scholarship program and we asked the winners, like, what programs are you most interested in? And they all said, we want that peer-to-peer program that you have for adults for college students. So I was like, oh my gosh. So we're working on that, but there is so much. What do you think that the broader community can learn from your Amish and Mennonite community in regard to cystic fibrosis?
I think in general, just kind of having faith and maybe confidence in your own beliefs and going down that path. Also, just taking a minute and making that genuine connection, the human connection with others. We talked earlier about phone calls and text messages, things like that. But that kind of takes away that genuine person-to-person connection. Just taking that extra minute to go visit your neighbor instead of giving them a call, going to their door, knocking on the door, and just checking in with them. Taking time out of your day to go visit family. Things like that just make things a little more personable.
Please tell us if there is some kind of routine or something in the CF clinic that you do that people might find interesting.
As far as the Amish patients, we follow the same routine with them. We usually have the nurse room them, and then we have the doctor meet with them, and then all the other specialties along the way. And then at some point in the visit, they'll have their 2 PFTs. So we try to do it the same as other patients, but at the same time, like my Amish patient might take my cell phone to call their driver to let them know, I need to be picked up, or we might need to coordinate and look up the bus centro schedule to get them home. Things like that maybe other patients can do more easily because they have their phones and they have that technology. We just have to kind of assist with that.
Well, thanks for letting us into this world a little bit more to get a better understanding of the CF community. I also know we talked about, because there are differences in care, there might be differences in the outcome of how you're dealing with the CF or how your health is. But it doesn't sound like there are any problems with how their health is compared to other people with CF. Is there?
I think in general, it's person to person, so it's different. I do think that some of our Amish patients are a little more reluctant maybe to take some of the medications that we encourage them, and that might lead to more maybe of a decline or easier way getting sick, which then leads to the conversation of, is this the path they want to go down, or are they ready to maybe incorporate the Pulmozyme or the Trikafta or the Creon, and just having that conversation. So I think sometimes, it's hard. Like our adult patient with cystic fibrosis who wants to adopt, we've had the conversation with him about male infertility. And last time I met with them, we spoke about their options, and they wanted to try some herbal remedies. So we didn't say no. We just encouraged them to try and let us know what happens. And then if at that point they want to look at other routes, we'll take those routes. So we just kind of, encourage them and guide them and see what their decisions lead to, and then have that conversation of what's the next step.
And you're following your lead and learning as you go.
Absolutely. They taught us so much.
Well, thanks for sharing all of this with us, and we will have more in the future because I am excited to see. I sent them a bunch of questions that I can't wait to hear the answers to, so we will bring more of the Amish Mennonite community to everyone. But thanks, Lejla, for sharing all your knowledge and experience with us so that everybody can better understand what's going on.
And thank you for the chance just to speak to them and about them. Like you said, not a lot of people might have a good background on them, so it's nice to just be able to speak to their positive attributes. And I will definitely share as soon as I get letters from them, so you can share that as well.
Thank you. It's so good to learn about and from other people, and it's helpful to all of us. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The original music in this podcast is performed by Kevin Allen,
It's not complicated.
who happens to have cystic fibrosis.
We all got our worries and fears. I know it's got you frustrated, but loving you is so alright.
This has been the Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast. For more information and to learn more about the Bonnell Foundation, visit our website at thebonnellfoundation.org. That's the BONNELL Foundation.org. This podcast was produced by Jag and Detroit Podcasts. Follow our show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now.